want to welcome all the panelists. We have 5 of them today, and I'm the role we're going to introduce each one of you late as we progress throughout the webinar itself. And I'm just going to make a few quick remarks about why Georgia Asian Times wanted to do this. All this started when President Trump, back in March 2020, said 2 words, two sentences: China virus and Kung flu. And when he said those 2 sentences, it basically created a license for all this hate crime and hate, people with hate to commit crime against Asian Americans. So as a result, AAPI has been under attack. The stats shows that they are over 342% growth since 2021 in terms of hate crimes. And I'm sure that number is continuing to climb. And it depends on the demographic too in America. And I would like to also take a moment to acknowledge our sponsor for this webinar, Stop Asian Hate, which is a national coalition of AAPI groups to raise awareness on hate crime against AAPI. I also like to acknowledge the sponsorship by National Association of Chinese Americans, NACA, who has been very vocal and supportive of anti-Asian hate crimes. And I applaud the board of directors of NACA to put the money where the mouth is, so to speak. And this is a very important issue that will not go away. So with that, I'd like to introduce our first panelist, Cam Ashling. Cam, welcome. And Cam is, as most of you know, is the founder of the Asian American Action Fund, which is the Georgia Advancing Progress PAC 2. And Cam is a very passionate activist on the civil rights of AAPI. And she is also widely known as the Buckhead Goat Lady. And Cam, I want to just basically ask you a simple question. What actions have your organization taken in the past 12 months in tackling AAPI racism?
Tackling AAPI racism has always been part of our important mission when we say we're here to advance Asian American voices. And in our work on the PACs and in civic engagement, we strive to get Asian American represented on the government level. So our core work has always been to get more Asian American elected so that they can speak up against, hateful bills, discriminatory, government regulations and policy, and to be there to represent our community at the Capitol, as a House representative, as a Senate representative, running for office. So a lot of our work is getting our community to have voice in that space so that we are at the table and not on the menu.
Great. Well, do you have any plans for the coming 12 months?
Yes. And on the side, we also do a lot of the rallies. So last year, I was helping with the first 316 rally at Liberty Plaza. And then recently, we just did an Asian Justice rally at CPACs with other coalition members to commemorate the anniversary of our Thai grandfather. And then now we're planning the 316 event again at the Liberty Plaza across from the Georgia Capitol, just to bring more awareness to our elected that this is a community problem and the Asian community is not going to continue to be bullied and beat up, and we're sick and tired of people dying from our community over stupid hate and racism.
Can you share the dates and the dates and time on the chat?
It's Wednesday, March 16th, plan on 12 to 2 at Liberty Plaza, which is across the street from the Georgia State Capitol, take MARTA there. And we hope to also have like a great showing of students who are in the area in class and coming out to support us.
And we're going to shift gear a little bit. I want to introduce you to my next panelist guest, Lily Pabian, Executive Director of We Love Beaufort Highway, founded in 2015. We Love Beaufort Highway is a 501c3 nonprofit that seeks to preserve the multicultural identity of Atlanta's Beaufort Highway corridor. And Lily, welcome. Why don't you explain more what We Love Beaufort Highway is all about? And I'm going to just add on to the questions. What concrete steps do you guys take since March 16 to prevent the shooting incident or proactive actions against AAPI hate crime along the corridor?
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Lee Wong, Georgia Asian Times, NACA, for hosting this really important discussion. As you said, our mission is to preserve the multicultural identity of Beaufort Highway, and it's about this place, this 10-mile stretch that has been such an important starting point for so many of our Asian communities here in Atlanta. It's 40 years old, and a lot of people don't realize that. So part of our work is really about raising awareness. When we started, I like to call us truth tellers instead of storytellers now. It's really about fostering a trusted place where our voices are heard, our stories are shared, and that we can get power through each other's stories. I remember that day as I was coming into this, it was kind of like reflecting back. And I know we don't want to, talk too much, but part of I remember hearing it from Sophia Choi. She actually called me, WSB TV, and she's like, Lily, do you know what's going on? And I said, I just froze when it was unfolding. And I just started getting calls and calls and calls and messages from local businesses, women, Asian women, just, frightened. One particular owner, she literally said, I really don't know what to do. I need to equip myself. How do I keep my staff safe? How do I keep myself safe? Owners started, equipping with pepper spray, and what we found very early on was that there wasn't a place to kind of talk about this, and there wasn't this collective. I think it's kind of like the old adage, right? We feel lonely in this. We've always felt lonely in this. And our big step was we created a roundtable with our friends from CPACs and AREA and AAAJA, and it was called Asians United. And it was and we literally had this, invited all groups and leaders at a Canton House, an institution. And we talked about how we all felt about it, how we felt lonely about it. And it was just one of those pivotal points of when you're talking about storytelling and capturing these testimonies, how powerful it can be, because we gain strength with each other, sort of grieving with each other. And from there, we had heard that there was a church group, and they were like, we really want to do a peace rally, and they couldn't find a place to host it. So we worked with them to find a place that, to me, was just so beautiful to see so many of our Asian communities come out on Beaufort Highway at the old Kmart for just a peace rally. And again, it's that support that we're all looking for. So a big part of what we're doing this year is called the Beaufort Highway Community Archive. And in that, it is a collection of going out and interviewing our immigrant communities, because, we're talking about Stop Asian Hate, but there's so many immigrants, people of color that get targeted with hate. So how do we work collectively in that space of commonalities, and really, propel from there, really start learning. Another project that we just signed up with the support of the Center for Community Services, CPACs, under the Stop AAPI Hate initiative, is we're working with the local Atlanta Chinese Learning Center to create some workshops and to do that outreach, which we've started to get that, where are the gaps in communication? And so we're going to offer cultural learning, language learning, cultural adeptness, awareness to city leaders, to, when you're talking about small businesses, particularly on Buford Highway, right? It's working with local economic development staff and community engagement teams and say, hey, how can we bridge? What are your day-to-days, particularly in the Chinese-speaking communities, right? How can we help? And perhaps it's just learning a couple of words or learning about behaviors and those nuances that can really bring us closer together to understanding. And we just sent out a meeting notice in all 3 cities, because we focus on Chamblee, Doraville, and Brookhaven, are very, very excited about this engagement. So a lot of work to do, a lot of discovery, but I think that from a year ago, I personally feel more empowered, and I personally had a moment 2 weeks ago in my neighborhood where I was called out a commie. And it's one of those things you're kind of like, whoa, did that just happen? And so even those, as a victim, it's us to build awareness that this is happening, this is in my face. How do I deal with this? And the big help for me was the Stop AAPI website to report my incident. And at first I was like, oh, I'm not gonna, what is, but it was a place for me to go. And I told my story, and that in itself was so cathartic. And I've been promoting it ever since.
That's great. Well, thanks, Lily, for sharing your thoughts on that. I'd like to introduce our next panelist. We have with us a distinguished guest, Solicitor General of Gwinnett County, Mr. Brian Whiteside. Good morning, Mr. Whiteside. Thanks for joining us. Mr. Whiteside has been practicing law for over 25 years on the both state and federal level. He has legal experience covering vast area of civil and criminal law. A former Gwinnett County Sheriff Deputy and former police detective in Gary, Indiana. He was elected as the Gwinnett Solicitor General back in 2018. Welcome, Mr. Whiteside. Can you share with us what are the proactive actions are being taken by your office in dealing with Asian hate and racism in Gwinnett County?
Well, one of the first things we did was when I guess Donald Trump was in office, we found out that people were being harassed in California. And I sent out a public notice on the newspaper and on TV that we would ask for 1 year in jail if any of our Asian community was harassed, any type of simple battery, any type of simple assault. Nothing had occurred then, but because I read about it in the paper that happened in Los Angeles, we took a proactive measure to strategically prevent any type of crime, because this was happening in other counties. So then I basically typed up a notice to all the citizens in Gwinnett County. We handed out about 5,000 of these notices, and particularly we went to some areas where we knew that some of these racist supremacists, they had meetings and they have, at gun ranges, and I have personally handed them out myself. And then we formed a group with Brian Kim and other persons called Gwinnett County United Nations 316. This was after this event happened, to educate the community about hate and the Asian culture, all the benefits, all the opportunities that they had given America, their achievements, such as being, awarded the Medal of Honor, women who had invented things. So we have a group now that actually goes out and educates people about the Asian community, the Asian culture. But then we also work about voting. I spoke to a young lady by the name of Yo Me. When we formed this group, we were eating at La Madeline in Duluth, Georgia. Brian Kim helped get that organized, and we would meet all people, race, colors, and creeds. We're talking about Muslim, we're talking about Black, we're talking about white and Asian people. And Yo Me asked me a question: how are things going to change? I said, run for office. The only way you get rid of these supremacists, these racist people, is to take control. Because see, if you're in the city council, if you're a mayor, then you pick the police chief, and that chief can come and patrol your area. Another thing I've done, I've recently spoken to James Nye in the community of Gwinnett, and we now are going to have a civilian patrol where they actually patrol and we work with them to prevent crime in the Asian community. They'll be able to be out in cars. They have identification saying Solicitor General, volunteer, they have badges, and we're working with the police department to pinpoint crime in the Asian community and to prevent that and prosecute people.
Mr. Whiteside, can you share with us what kind of legal actions that your office is prepared to take against the perpetrators of hate crime in Gwinnett County?
Well, in our notice that we sent out on TV and in the media, what basically says anytime this a threat is made upon someone in our Asian community, we're going to recommend 12 months in custody. Not probation, we're going to ask that you go to custody because I do misdemeanors. The only thing I can do is do 12 months. But for every issue, if somebody comes in criminal trespassing right on your business, derogatory things, for every other word they do or every other issue in the back of the house, in the back of a business, in the front of a business, I'm going to count that. I'm going to ask for 1 year for everything that they write. If you're in a store and somebody says, oh, why don't you speak English? And they continue to try to commit a simple assault or insult somebody, that's a violation also. That's a simple assault. So we recommend 12 months in custody. I don't recommend any probation whatsoever. So the only way to deter these supremacists and these hate people is, for the first time in history, we're the only prosecutor that actually told these white supremacists that there are consequences to their actions. So we're prepared to ask for 12 months for everything that they do in jail.
So far, are there any perpetrators that you guys sent to?
No, and I can't take credit for everything, but see, we're on social media also, on Facebook, we're in Twitter, and a lot of preventive measures. So we're always saying that, we're going to back our Asian brothers and sisters. We're going to back our Muslim brothers and sisters. Any race, color, or creed, white people also. So we're taking preventive measures. We haven't had any hate crimes at this point yet. We're taking an aggressive attitude, especially because of the elections. You look at that they wiped out at least 3 of the Asian seats in the House of Representatives by this bipartisan map. So we expect them to be targeting a lot of Democrats and a lot of Asian communities to provide dissension and separatism. But what happens is that you look at the fact they moved Marlene Foskey to, the Beaufort area. But they made a big mistake because the great deal of the business owners are Asian and Muslim, and they're going to vote for Marlene Foskey. So we're actually educating the Asian community to go out and vote, to break the back of these, Republican racists. Because, see, you're actually my boss. You pay me. And so the will of the people has to be expressed through their representatives. But they think that they can put somebody out there, then that's going to be a lack of representation to the Asian community. So I met with Marlene yesterday and James Nye at his bakery. And we're talking about basically helping them get in touch with the Gwinnett CID, have civilian patrols, start to have forums on what the Asian community really needs. We're having a lot of car break-ins at your homes. We're having a lot of car break-ins outside your restaurant. We need more patrol. So now there's actually a voice in the Asian community. We're giving them a voice because, see, I try to tell people, you're actually my boss, you pay me. But we need to know what the Asian community needs. So we're reaching out with Marlene Foscue, we're reaching out with James Nye, Brian Kim. All these people, somehow I got together because I just didn't want anybody attacked. So what's happening now is we're actually finding the needs of the community and taking an aggressive stance to prevent crime, not to react to it. See, we don't want you to be a victim. We want you to prevent from being a victim. And we're trying to basically take an aggressive stance that we don't want racists in Gwinnett County.
Well, thank you for sharing your thoughts this morning, Mr. Whiteside. I'm going to switch gear and introduce our next guest panelist. She's Kaur. She's the Senior Legal Client Manager for the SIG Coalition. She has been in this role since 2017, and she was a graduate from Andrew Young School of Public Policy of Georgia State University. Welcome. Good morning, Aziz. My question to you this morning is, can you briefly share with our audience here, what are kind of challenges that the Sikh community faces during the past year?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all so much for being here. Before I jump into that, Lily, I wanted to say your words are still ringing in my head, and I absolutely love the Archives Project. Our home is right off of Winter's Chapel, so growing up, we've had the pleasure of loving and enjoying everything that Buford Highway has to offer. And I love that it's all going to be documented for us to enjoy for many years to come, but also what you said about taking power of our narratives, whether it means we only share it with one another or how we tell our stories to the larger public, right? Taking back that power of how we tell our stories or how we become the truth tellers. And I just wanted to mention, we're hearing so much, but that's still sitting quite prominently in my head and in my thoughts right now. I'll probably keep brewing on that a little bit more. And I don't, maybe we've all been in the trenches in one way or the other, but sometimes it's so hard to even share what we've personally experienced, because we've conditioned ourselves to kind of provide that triage and provide that first responders type of support, that when it happens directly to us, our responses look so different and they feel so different. So I'm going to be thinking about that a little bit more. And to answer your question, Lee, I'd say that the simplest way to start talking about that really is to share that the FBI data, right? It shows that Sikhs are consistently in the top 5 most targeted faith groups in this country for hate crimes and bias incidents. And, we're confident and strongly believe that the situation is actually much worse than that, because law enforcement agencies don't report hate crime numbers to the federal government. Right, that's an opt-in system. It's not something that's mandatory. But in the past year, really thinking, right, COVID-19 onwards, we've also seen a large spike in workplace discrimination against Sikhs, and that's largely because of our articles of faith, which include turbans and unshorn hair. So an example of that I can share is we've seen a number of Sikh medical professionals not being given access to appropriate PPE, even as they are on the front lines against COVID-19. So we've gotten a lot of cases like that in the past year. We've seen school bullying numbers start going back up as schools reopened and as kids got back together. Those cases feels like they're coming in at a steady flow. And then in the past year, right, we've also had the same challenges that all other Americans are facing, right? Working to get pandemic and vaccine related resources to our friends and neighbors, the ongoing fight to preserve our civil rights, the ongoing challenges to there's every month there's just so much happening, right? To keep track of how all of our communities are being impacted and how we can keep showing up for one another in that true form of allyship, sharing resources, building that resource network, whether it's of pro bono attorneys, it's of mental health professionals who can provide guidance and help in multiple languages. So many of those same challenges, that really everyone here today it's going to be touching on. It's been a busy year.
That's
Unfortunately, but it's been a busy.
You mentioned something that hits the spot, especially on relating to mental health. And there are a lot of cases where AAPI individuals, are facing tremendous pressure and anxiety over this hate crime. And also because of the double pressure of COVID and this happening, as of yesterday, I came across a very interesting statistics involving nurses. They say that according to a latest report, AAPI nurses faces over 73% of racism out there doing their job. Can you imagine during 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 the COVID times, they are, giving their life to protect, and yet they're still facing all this type of racism from people. So it is an issue. I do not know. I don't have the answer. I just wish we can talk about it openly and bring some resolution, So Ashish, what type of specific proactive actions does your Sikh Coalition take proactively this year in tackling this issue?
This question feels like we're really opening a huge can of worms, because there's a gazillion ways, right? We can all be doing so much more, and so many proactive measures that are being taken to move forward. But I'd say, I think I'll focus on three main things. The first one really being community resources. We have to educate our community members on what hate crimes are, right? How to identify it, how to recognize it. And then this again, sorry, Lily, I feel like I'm picking on you, but talking about why reporting them is important, right? We have this moment of, well, it was just verbal, maybe I don't need it documented, or, well, we were told to, have thick skin, this is rite of passage, this is this, the thousands of excuses that flood our minds. But really talking about why reporting hate crimes and bias incidents is important. And then thinking about community resources, what aid is available to them if they're targeted by hate, right? Whether it's, you can go to this organization that'll provide you pro bono legal support, or you can go to this website to find a local attorney that has cultural competency to be able to help you in the best ways that you need it, right? But having those resources available and accessible to our community members in the languages that they prefer, but also just being able to talk to them about what their legal rights are when it comes to all of this stuff, what their legal rights are at school, at work, just out about in public, so they are aware and informed, and they can feel, more empowered. I'd say the second piece can be, is policy change, right? We're working to improve how local, state, and federal governments track and prosecute hate crimes, as well as the laws around workplace discrimination, and also the efforts to fight white nationalism, nationalist extremism. And then the third the third piece to this also goes back to education, but it goes beyond just public awareness about the Sikh community. We also push for inclusive curricula and provide classroom material so that we can target and we can stop the prejudice and the attitudes and the mindsets that lead to bullying at an earlier stage.
Well, that's
It's
that's
a
a real
multi-year
important play.
strategy, but we're at it.
Well, thank you for sharing your thoughts this morning. Georgia Asian Times is actively promoting awareness on mental health issues, especially young AAPI, because of all the anxiety and pressure the past 2 years that we are under. There's a lot of discussion on all our ethnic podcasts, in the Filipino podcast, the Laotian podcast, the Indonesian podcast, and soon we will be launching a 4th podcast targeting the Burmese community. So mental health discussion is very key because we want to raise awareness about this point. We are also in the process of creating either an in-person seminar or webinar on mental health. So I will also appreciate all your participation and support in raising this awareness, very important issue, especially towards our young and elderly demographics who are suffering in silence, so to speak. I'm going to shift gear a little bit now. My next guest is actually from Brooklyn, New York, Miss Titi Yu. Titi is currently shooting a wonderful documentary. I wouldn't say wonderful, but it's a recording of history, that what actually took place. And just to give a little background on Titi, she's a documentary filmmaker based in Brooklyn, produced numerous hours of TV for PBS, HBO, NBC, and the History Channel. So she's documenting whatever is going on since 3/16. And this documentary will be broadcast on PBS during the Asian American Heritage Month this year. So Titi, welcome. Give us a little background of your project and what you hope to accomplish from there.
Thanks, Lee, for that introduction. So the documentary film that we've been working on for the past year takes the March 16th shooting as the jumping off point and kind of look at this larger issue of anti-AAPI hate across the country. And, I'm sure you guys know that, just here in New York, the past couple of weeks, we've seen just a couple of really, really horrific crimes being committed. So, as a reporter, I'm always used to sort of being in the middle of a story and being in the middle of the action. But this, kind of working on this story for the past year has felt very different for me because of just the continuing violence that we've been seeing around the country. And so the documentary is airing on May 31st. It's going to be on PBS. We had my producing partner Gina Kim, who is also who's Korean American. The two of us really kind of approached PBS soon after the shooting happened in Atlanta, and like at all the AAPIs across the country, we've been sort of seeing this increase of violence and crimes being committed. And, when something big like this happened in Atlanta, there's a lot of media attention towards it. But soon, soon as the media leaves and everybody's gone and that story has really gone away in the mainstream press, but, within the communities, we're still, we're dealing with this crisis every day, and it's not getting any better. So Gina and I approached PBS to say, we really need a documentary to kind of not just document this moment, but to kind of really look at some of the conversations that's happening within the community, and also the kind of coalition building that the Asians are doing with other communities. So that's sort of the basis of our approach to this film. And I have to say that, you know, I see a lot of familiar faces on this panel. So it's really, really good for me to see that, you know, that we're speaking to the right people, and that we're really telling, you know, as Aziz have said many times on this panel, that we're trying to tell our own story, and that this is, and you know, sort of piggyback on that, you know, we have an incredible team of just incredible Asian American documentary filmmakers. You know, whenever something like this comes up, people always say, oh, there's not enough, you know, talented Asians or whatever to do these films, but you know, that's not true. You know, that we have, our team is almost completely all Asian American women. All the top creative posts are Asian American women. You know, and so we're really, really proud of not just the story that we're telling, but really the team that we're able to kind of put together on this project. So, wow. Thank you.
I should commend you for that. And please don't forget to submit your film to the Atlanta Asian Film Festival, which Georgia Asian Times is co-hosting in October this year.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. We're also hoping to do a large screening in Georgia when, you know, right before it airs. So yeah, so there'd be many opportunities for people to tune in and see the documentary.
That's great.
Yeah.
While shooting this documentary, I'm sure it's a lot of negativity, but are there any specific moments that gives you hope? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are many moments that gave me hope, and I think, you know, the conversations that I've had with people in Georgia, with people, you know, in New York and San Francisco, just a kind of deep self-reflection, the kind of honesty that people are really bringing to this moment, kind of push through a lot of really hard conversations. And I think that really, really does give me hope, you know, despite the sort of divisiveness of what's happening, of, you know, what we're seeing, you know, in the public.
That's great. Well, I really look forward to your documentary, and if there's anything we can do to help spread the word about your documentary, please feel free to reach out.
For sure, for sure. Thank you. And we're going to be there on March 16th for the big rally. So we'll definitely see everybody there.
Great. Cam, can you share a little bit about the agenda on March 16 rally?
Yes. So we're trying to coordinate with other cities across the state to do a kind of like a day-long event like we did on January 22nd. So that, you know, Atlanta, we will have, you know, 12 to 2, and maybe another city in Boston, San Francisco, wherever. They'll take different times during that day. I don't think that day is a day, like our theme is to break the silence, okay? And we want to do that with people who are in charge of the safety of our community. And that is our government and our elected. You know, we've invited people and representatives from the White House and, you know, the White House Initiative on Asian Americans. We've invited our senators and our elected, and whoever is available on that day. We hope that they can come and raise awareness, say out loud that we need to stop Asian hate, you know, because as you said earlier, Lee, this kind of started from the top, right? I wanted to end from the top down, okay? And we would have to mitigate that from the top down and from the bottom up, you know, and I want to activate our young people. I want to reach the people who have been silent, who are used to being quiet. And I want to break that stereotype. It's not acceptable that so many of our victims are Asian women. Why are we the target for that? even with people who have mental issue, in their mental difficulty, they remember and think we should get the Asian woman. That, I mean, that's the low-hanging fruit. I don't want us to be the low-hanging fruit for violence. You know, so the rally and remembering it is something that has to happen. This has got to be our Vincent Chin of our modern time. What I want 9/16 to be is to be like our 9/11 for the Asian American community. We don't forget, we continue to remember it day after day, year after year. We do something on this day, no matter what day it lands on, and that we continue to fight the racism. It's not going to happen in 1 year or 2 years, you know, and we need to continue to vote out racism, as you know, Solicitor Brian Whiteside said. Racism cannot be ingrained in our system, and then we think that it's going to go away. We got to get rid of racist leaders in our society. You know, it's monkey see, monkey do, and racist people got to go, got to vote out the racism. So come to the rally if you're around, and I hope to see TT there.
Great. Quick question is, if some folks who are unable to come to the rally because of work, and I believe it's a weekday too.
Yeah, it's a little bit tougher this time because it's a Wednesday, but I don't want people to kind of like side swipe the day, right? We're going to have a Zoom link.
Will it be live stream that
Yes.
folks can also, you know, participate?
Yes. Check out the CPAC's website for details. We're sending out a Facebook invite too. And then the larger organization also has a website that's linked on there. So tune in whatever way you can.
Yeah, please forward the information to us. We will be more than happy to help broadcast the information to the general public, that they can join the rally both in person and also online. Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
And jumping quickly to Lily. I'm sure you have a lot more to say, Lily, as usual.
What are you saying?
What proactive things are you going to do this year?
Well, you know, I just summarize, you know, I sit in this space and you just instantly feel just safe and comfortable. And I think that for me, it's really about that trust. I think that we all have initiatives, whatever organization groups we in, everybody has agendas, you know, and at the end of the day, I think for the everyday people, when we're talking about voices and we're talking about those that catalyze going to the polls or catalyze revealing, right? I think it's really important to create more of these safe spaces where you know, it's not for film, it's not for headline, it's for the process of empowerment, it's for the process of healing, because I think we need to feel it individually. We need to own it. We need to really, really face this and realize that it is a real thing. It's been a real thing for a long time. I think that when we talk about mental health, it's such a big piece of, particularly as immigrants, our number one focus is to survive coming here, first generation, right? And then as second generations, that's what you're fed from your parents. And in some ways, it silenced you just in that. And so how do we recognize that and really start doing the work, the community work? You know, I think that one of the things that, you know, of course, our focus is Buford Highway, but there's so many pockets, so many that we are communities of, right? We patron there, we live there, we pay our taxes, all of it. So being able to find our allies and really working together. I know that, you know, I think about it as, you know, when I was going through motherhood, you know, and as a woman, and I was very, very privileged to pause my career for a bit, to stay at home with my child. And I just remember how lonely that felt and how defeated and how that caused a lot of mental strain and stress. But finding you know, we have all these networks for moms, right? And connecting us. And ultimately, what's the reason? It's because we need that support in our times of just, you know, not being able to have that backup, you know, or even having somebody to bounce things with. So I think it's important. I think that fellowship and friendship is really key through all of this, and learning, because sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And so, but before you even get to that point, it's finding that trusted entity, person, whatever. So that's what we're working on through, you know, one of the motives and the reasons for this community archive, of course, is to lay a community archive where we're not always having to start over. Beaufort Highway has a tale of that, right? It's really about that continuation. And what do we pass on to the next generations? What does that baton look like? How do we prepare them to get them to take it and to run with it? So, but again, it's about a safe place of being able to share your story.
That's great. Thanks, Lily, for your comments and thoughts as usual. And I'm going to shift back to Assis. Assis, in our brief conversation recently, you mentioned about a situation that you encounter with the young folks in the Sikh community, and you say that they're all high-strung, full of anxiety because of what is going on. So what kind of advice are you giving to the parents of these folks to remedy the situation?
There's, I mean, everything we're talking about, even though, right, we're representing different fragments of our larger human family, all of our struggles and our challenges are the same, right? It takes me back to everything we've been saying about mental health and the resources that are needed, especially for the younger and the elderly population. I've got a few friends who have, you know, just been reaching out saying their kids are experiencing anxiety in ways they've never seen before, they've never witnessed before, right? What do I do? They're withdrawing, right? They're more lonely than they've ever been. And it's such a tough thing to balance, especially, right, when you're in that frame, in that mindset of a parent, right? Like, at what can you be doing to be supporting your kid, but also giving them that space to kind of work through the emotions of everything that's happening. And I, you know, it's no sage advice or anything, but I was just reminding those parents that their world and how quickly they're receiving information and having to process that information is moving a lot faster than we ever had to deal with it, right? All now, you know, for 3 years, they've lost high school experiences. For 3 years, they've just been subject to so much more stuff online, and even the news, right? Just coming, all of these pieces of information just coming at them, all of these, the bad stories coming out them, right? This happens so much, and I know, you know, everyone in this room tries to work against it, that will often only be in the news when something bad has happened to us. So actually, before you call my name, I was typing in the chat to Lily to share that the archive project also gives all of us the opportunity to be so much more than victims, right? To break that victimhood mentality. And in our languages, we might not even have the terminology for it, but we want to be able to show that we're so much more than that, you know, that all these stories that we hear about one another shouldn't only be of all of these crazy, insane, ridiculous, bad things that are happening to us, right? We need the positive stories too. We need the Jaskaran Singhs of the world winning the National Jeopardy college championship. We need things like this also in the media, so that everyone who is paying attention, because I mean, we're all hooked to our phones, we're also getting the positive, little nuggets of things that are happening in our community, so that we can feel like, okay, maybe it's not, the situation is bad and it's likely worse than we think it is, but it's not only doom and gloom, that there are people willing to help. There are so many resources available, and that anyone going through anything like this never has to feel like they're doing it alone. They should always know that they've got a whole army, lots and lots of organizations and groups willing to stop everything they're doing to, stand alongside them and tell them, we've got your back. And especially our younger kids, they just need to know that we've got their backs, whether it's a school bullying thing, other things that are happening. They don't have to fight any of it alone.
Well, again, we are coming close to our time at the end of the discussion. Is there any questions for our panelists from our audience? If not, I'd like to make a couple of quick comments here. Georgia Asian Times has always in business to promote AAPI from day one. And I'm proud to say that my goal, my organization's goal, is to empower AAPI. And that's one of the reasons we created the 25 most influential Asian Americans in Georgia. And this was done way before AAPI has become a hot topic. So the nomination for this year's 25 most influential is opened on our website at gasiantimes.com. If you know of any worthy AAPI individual that have contributed to the community, that needs to be recognized, go nominate. I don't want to hear complaints from the community that says that certain group are not being nominated, not being recognized. If you are not being nominated, I cannot, or we cannot put you up there. Okay, it has to be a true nomination process. Okay, and secondly, I want to thank all of you for taking the time to address this very important issue. This conversation is ongoing, and I second Cam's comments earlier. We need to have change in the people that represent us. So Georgia Asian Times is also championing all the AAPI candidates running for office, provided they are championing our causes, okay? So don't just say that you support certain candidate, put the money where your mouth is, so to speak. Donate to the campaign, maybe $5, $10, doesn't matter. Every little bit helps. If you don't have the financial means, go volunteer, knock on doors, join Cam in her weekend excursion where she go for for election campaign rally. That's how you can make a difference. And with that, since there are no questions, I thank each of the panelists for your time. And Tidi, thank you for joining us from Brooklyn, and we look forward to your documentary. And thank you, everybody, to take the time of your precious Friday schedule to join this webinar. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Lee.
Thank you.
Bye.